welcome back! I'm the Book Guy, and just this last week I have launched my own trilogy of books, The Immortal Investigations, live now on Kickstarter, and I thought to celebrate the release of my own books, I would look at books by other YouTubers. So for the month of October, we're doing YouTuber October, so to speak. We're starting with Daniel Greene, the man who I consider to be the unofficial king of BookTube. Also, in case you didn't see, Daniel Greene got engaged recently. I'm just so happy for him. Congratulations, buddy. All the best to you. Daniel has done 3 books so far, and we're going to look at all 3 of them today. So he did the first 2 shorter novellas called Breach of Peace and Rebel's Creed. They're only 100 pages and are 250 pages long. These 2 books are part of the Lawful Times series. Then he's done his first full-length novel, A Witch's Sin, which is part of the Neon Ghost series. And this book was also launched on Kickstarter. Hey, it's a theme. So today I'm going to have a look at all the good, the bad, and yes, the ugly of all 3 of these books. And rather than telling you what I think, I'm going to give you information to help you decide for yourself if you want to read these books. But first, I want to establish a few ground rules for today's video. First of all, I'm reviewing Daniel Greene's books, not Daniel Greene.
This story's about me, not him.
This might seem obvious, but it's a very important distinction when you're talking about a YouTuber. When you're a YouTuber, you have to put your personality into everything you do. It's not like a regular business where you have a professional detachment. If you want to succeed in an online space, you need to be genuine and authentic, or at least come across that way. Unfortunately, this also means that your personality becomes intrinsically linked with your brand and your product, and it becomes very difficult to separate art from artist. So let me just clarify. If I were to rate Daniel Greene the person, it would be 5 stars. He's a great guy. I love him, okay? No problems there. And if I were to rate Daniel Greene the YouTube channel, again, 5 stars. He's the unofficial king of BookTube. I mean, I'm not exactly a fan of how he makes fun of YA books. I don't think those are flames that need any fanning. But otherwise, his content is top-notch and he does a world of good for the community. But if I were to rate his books, let's just say they'll be a bit lower than 5 stars, yeah? Second, I want to restate for the record that I don't spoil books in my videos, but I do give a little bit more information, with the goal being to entice you to read it. Think of this like a movie trailer. This summer. But a good movie trailer that doesn't reveal the whole plot, just enough to get you interested. So just be prepared. I will talk a little bit more about plot and world building to give you an idea if you want to read these books for yourselves, so you have been warned. Third and finally, there is a little bit of rough writing in these 3 books. There's plenty of good stuff, yes, and there's plenty of bad. But I'm not just here to be negative. If something doesn't work, I'm going to explain why it didn't work, rather than just crapping all over it for clickbait's sake. I call this video an honest analysis, because I don't believe in brutal honesty. I believe honesty can be kind, encouraging, and uplifting, and that is absolutely my goal here today. Alright, that being stated, let's get into the first book. A powerful noble family is brutally murdered. In fact, half the first novella is just talking about how brutally murdered they were. So brutally. Officer Clid is the lead on the case. Her husband Samuel is tagging along as supporting detective. And unfortunately, because this is a high-profile case and there's a bit of politics into it, the couple have to deal with Chapman, the maverick detective. Our trio try to find out who killed this noble family. Or perhaps what killed them, since the carnage is a bit intense. There is a rebel group in the area, making targeted attacks against the Empire, and that could be related to this crime.
You rebels. Scum.
Yet Clid begins to suspect that the conspiracy runs much deeper than that, maybe even a little closer to home. This was my big question going into Lawful Times. If Book 2 continues straight after Book 1, then why wasn't it simply published together? Is this just one book split in half? Did Daniel Greene get greedy and split his story into multiple parts to get more money out of us? I mean, it's been done a few times before. Okay, maybe more than a few. So there is a reason why the story is split in half, and it's not just greed. We'll talk about that in a second. No, the reason why the books are split is because of the characters. So the plot and the world building is consistent across both 2 books and continues in a linear manner. But the difference is there's almost entirely a different cast of characters in Book 2.
What happens to everyone else, you ask? Don't worry about it.
Book 2 focuses on rookie detective Holden Sanders, and the secondary slash minor characters that are Josh, Flip, and Reki. It's a pretty bold choice to change characters across books, and honestly, I'm not sure it works. You see, the first book has a trio of detectives with Clyd, Sam, and Chapman, and they have a truly fantastic dynamic between the three of them. Honestly, a highlight of the first novella is the three of them working together. Clyd is a grouchy character, while Sam is a much more friendly softie, and Chapman is so pragmatic that he annoys everyone. They bounce off each other very well. Whereas the group of characters we see in book 2 don't have this level of intrigue. They're a bit more forgettable, and I struggled to stop them from blurring together. I mean, I actually had to look up their names for this video. The whole character swap thing between novellas is done for, I think, shock value. It is a unique idea and we don't see it very often, and I think new authors are often very keen to prove that they're willing to do unique things and make bold choices. Unfortunately, in this case, I feel like the new characters were just less interesting. Like, I'd only just gotten to know the first group, and now we're learning about a second batch. It's a bit like when the Doctor regenerates. For the first few episodes, you're kind of mad at the new Doctor for just being different and not being the old one. It takes a while to appreciate the difference. But unfortunately, in Two Short Novellas, we don't have a while to get to know the new people. One final note here, both of these novellas are also free as audiobooks. The audiobooks are played in full on Daniel Greene's YouTube channel. I've linked these videos in the description below. This is because Daniel was bothered by Audible's unethical business practices, and so he made his audiobooks free. So again, he's a pretty awesome guy, and he's not at all greedy for splitting the story into 2 parts. Now, let's talk about the world and the plot of Lawful Times. Lawful Times is a hybrid of genres Grimdark and Flintlock. So we have guns and ships, levels of technology from around the 17th to 18th century of Europe. Our detectives carry flintlocks. But honestly, that's about it. There's not too much technology in this world outside of guns. Unless you count biology, but as for the Grimdark angle, well, this is something I'm going to be a bit critical of a little later. You see, Grimdark here is bloody and violent and kind of hardcore, but I'm not sure if there's an actual reason for it in the story. The Grimdark is more of an aesthetic choice. It gives the world a certain feeling. Plus, I think there are moments when the Grimdark sort of tips over into horror. And honestly, the horror moments were some of the strongest in the whole book. But I think the violence is a little bit over the top. And again, I'll get to that later. The plot of Lawful Times is focused on the mystery of who killed this noble family. And impressively, the story does take some unexpected twists and turns, so I'm leaving this part really vague for you. But let's just say the trail is a long and windy road. I'll pause it here for a second. We'll talk more about Lawful Times in just a bit when we look at the strengths and weaknesses of Daniel Greene's writing style overall. But for now, let's look at Book 3, or Series 2, or Novel 1. Oh dear. After an environmental apocalypse, Earth has become uninhabitable. All of humanity now lives inside megastructures, huge domes, hundreds of stories high. Consumer culture is rampant inside this cyberpunk world. Everyone buys things to distract themselves from their doomed planet. We meet Taya Mint, an apprentice enforcer who just wants to earn enough money to buy a good ad blocker. That's all she wants. She wants those damn ads to stay out of her implants and stop interrupting her every waking moment. And her sleeping moments too. Taya has only one job left before she can earn her full enforcer license and start earning the big cash she needs to achieve her humble dream. Except, this last job is the kidnapping of a young girl. It looks like an open-shut case of murder, yet Taya can't turn a blind eye to the greater puzzle at play here. She can't just take a quick paycheck to get what she wants, not when there's a chance she might be able to find this girl and bring her back alive. Little does Taya know there are some very powerful people watching this case closely, and they are determined to see it solved their way. Now, I really enjoyed the cyberpunk angle of this story. I don't read this genre very often, and so it's a fun world to explore. I love how, as a reader, I'm thinking, wait, planet Earth is dead? How? When? And all the characters are just like, work sucks, right? They're all just totally nonplussed about it. It reminds me of the pandemic and everyone just being kind of numb to it all. This was a dystopian world that everyone just sort of casually accepts. It's also clear that this is a couple hundred years in Earth's future, so there's a lot more technology and sci-fi concepts in this book. Most of the technology is personalized technology, and I really like this approach. So instead of super spaceships or terraforming planets, we have the iPhone 50.
Neat.
And the most comfortable shoes. You know, personal technology to maximize your comfort and maximize company profits. The big worlding emphasis here is on the ads. And ads are everywhere, not just in the world, but on the page too. I swear it felt like every few pages we were seeing more ads. I think this was done deliberately, but at the same time, this was one area that wasn't explored enough. Ads are a great way to world build, to give your reader information, but we didn't actually learn that much through the ads. They were there more as a reminder of how annoying ads are. But I'll come back to this. This world is also ruled by the rich. I think. I never actually got a clear sense of what the government or ruling class was. I couldn't tell if it was a democracy or a pure capitalist oligarchy or somewhere in between. But essentially, the rich determine where everyone sits on the hierarchy of life and how much their life is worth. The poorer people live on the lower levels of this dome, and they have terrible life quality, with cramped conditions and lots of poisonous haze from outside leaking in. The rich on the upper levels have heaps of space and the cleanest air. Our main character, Taya, is an enforcer who travels between the levels of this megastructure, so she's one of the few people who's actually aware of the vast discrepancy between rich and poor. A fun detail is that the ads on her implant change depending on what level she's on. And that's actually explored pretty well. The upper levels will advertise luxuries, where the lower levels advertise necessities. The big difference between Lawful Times and Neon Ghosts is we stay with one point of view character, rather than juggling a cast of characters over a short period of time, or two casts of characters as it were. This time we get a much more focused piece of character work, and this is in many ways Taya Mint's story. I do think some people will have mixed reactions to her though. Taya is very hard on the exterior, almost always mean-spirited and calloused, and has no problem using extreme brutality in her job as an enforcer. In fact, please don't be offended, but she actually reminds me a lot of Selena from Throne of Glass.
Ironic.
But as we get to know Taya, we find out that she is very much in recovery from suffering a terrible loss. She has squashed down her grief and turns to violence as an outlet instead of processing her feelings. There is a bit of nuanced character writing here that shows the duality of her nature very well. The plot of this book is frankly kind of bizarre, and for two reasons. Just be warned, some of you might consider this to be very slight spoilers, but I'm being very careful to limit specifics. The truth is, the plot of Neon Ghost is almost identical to Lawful Times. I've never seen anything quite like it. It's almost like it's the same plot but in a different genre now. Neon Ghost almost became predictable because I knew how Lawful Times had worked out. I mean, I'm a writer myself, so I see these patterns and you might have a different experience, but it was weird. The plot starts with the crime. Our hero comes in to investigate. It looks like an open-shut case of the rebels did it, but it ends up being a vast conspiracy. Even the big reveal is kind of similar. The big plot difference of Neon Ghosts is that it focuses more on character. We get Taya's backstory and her past and her grief. This part is entirely original. I also think this plotline is the best writing Daniel's done. This got a true emotional response out of me. Oh, actually, that's not hard to do. I'm a very emotional person.
My emotions!
But this part worked very well. The second reason why this plot is kind of bizarre, because it uses a writing technique called a mid-story genre shift. This is a very risky move, so genre blending is always tricky on its own, but shifting genres halfway through a story is even trickier. Again, I think this is very much like the swapping of characters that Daniel did halfway through Lawful Times. It comes across as a new author trying to prove themselves by taking bold steps and trying something ambitious, but also in a similar way I'm not sure it worked. So shifting in genre, an example of this is the movie Sunshine, which looks like it's about a space team trying to save the sun from collapse. It ends up being a horror movie. And I know animes shift genre all the time, much like Future Diaries, which gets progressively more sci-fi. The difference between a good genre shift and a bad one comes down to foreshadowing. You've got to set up multiple times beforehand that the genre shift is coming, and then you got to transition smoothly. There needs to be clues that it was always there. Then a gradual, neat shift. With this book, unfortunately, the only clue of the genre shift is in the title, A Witch's Sin. And on the blurb on the back, it mentions a supernatural threat. But that's kind of it. The book itself really doesn't have any clear foreshadowing in this area. Then when the shift comes, it's out of frickin' nowhere too. And it just comes all at once. And honestly, it was so jarring I nearly stopped reading. But I'm not going to commentate on that any further. I think you've got enough information now to decide if you want to read it. But now that we've looked at the books individually, I'm going to look at what all three of these books accomplish as a whole. We'll discuss the strengths of Daniel's writing style, and then, yes, you sadistic monsters, we will also discuss the weaknesses. The first big strength we see is new ideas. And I love seeing fantasy and sci-fi push out new ideas, and all three of these books take steps in that direction. It can be very risky to experiment with the story, because a lot of experiments fail. But I think sci-fi and fantasy are genres that need to be constantly evolving and exploring. It's why I love the Dark Tower series so much, even though it has low points and weird points, because it's a fresh concept. In the same way, Lawful Times combines Flintlock and Grimdark and attempts the character swap. It's risky, didn't exactly work, but it's a new idea. And Neon Ghost combines genre too, but at the halfway mark. Risky, again, I'm not sure it worked, but full points for originality. The second big strengths are the themes. So all three books tackle the recurring themes of police brutality. Oof. What a heavy theme. This one's charged with political undertones, but it's also one that needs to be talked about. All of our protagonists are in law enforcement, and sometimes they do bad stuff and see no problem with it at first. There's also a recurring theme of church and state. There's a huge religious presence in all three of these books, often with the people in charge using religion to either justify their actions or to grow their power base. The third big theme is around wealth, and how wealthy lives are often considered more valuable than poor lives. This one shows up more than ever in Neon Ghost. Now, all of these themes prove that the books are actually about something. They're not just light and fluffy entertainment, they're exploring what it means to be human and to be part of the human race. And that's all I've got. I'm sorry, I actually tried really hard to think of more strengths to sort of balance out this segment. But anyway, let's dive headfirst into... Okay, this is going to be a big segment, but as I said at the start, you can be honest and still be kind. With that in mind, the first big weakness here is that the plots are very predictable. And yet, paradoxically, the plot twists come out of nowhere. Let me explain. The plot lines in all three of these books are mysteries. So you have detectives or enforcers investigating a crime. Yet in every case, there's really only two suspects. There's option A and option B. All the evidence points to option A. Zero evidence points to option B. But then, surprise, it was really option B. This doesn't work for a few reasons. One, because there's not enough options. In order for a mystery plotline to work, there needs to be multiple suspects, or false leads, or red herrings. Look at Murder on the Orient Express. Classic crime story. There's one detective investigating a whole train crew of suspects. It could be any one of them. But in Daniel's books, there just aren't that many players in the game, so it's kind of obvious who it's gonna be. Then there is the problem of the twist coming out of nowhere. There must be foreshadowing for a twist to work, otherwise it looks slapped on. If you look at the classic Darth Vader twist, there is foreshadowing in the first movie.
He betrayed and murdered your father.
And in the second movie, again, with the cave, with Luke's face being in Darth Vader's helmet. So when the twist comes, you feel like there were signs all along. But imagine if there had been no signs, and then Vader randomly drops this truth bomb. It would feel frustrating. confusing and kind of random, maybe even lazy writing for shock value? You must foreshadow a plot twist to prove that the author intended it all along. If the reader doesn't know what you intended, then they're gonna feel lost. On the flip side, some writers get worried that if you foreshadow the twist, then people will see it coming and it will ruin the book. And honestly, good. Right? It's better to have some smart readers see the twist coming than to have no one see the twist coming and be annoyed by it. You know the big twist at the end of Mistborn, Hero of Ages? Can you believe my wife saw it coming? I'm so annoyed about it because I'm the writer here. But then Kit comes into me halfway through the book and just goes, "Is it this?" She was right because she's so smart, one of the smartest people I've ever met. She's incredible. But she was also right because the clues were actually on the page all along, like they should be. You have to make it possible for someone to guess the ending, otherwise the twist comes out of nowhere. The second big weakness is there's not enough world building. Now, some fantasy and sci-fi stories get really bogged down with too much world building, but I think these books go to the other extreme and don't do enough. Let me give you 3 examples of this here. In Lawful Times, the detectives get interrupted when a second organization shows up, and let's call them the FBI. This comes out of nowhere. It's a jarring story shift. But imagine if the detectives had said at the start of the case, "Hey, we better solve this case quickly before the FBI show up." Then when they do show up, you get this sense of awe and dread. Instead, it just kind of feels random. I mentioned this tiny example because this sort of thing happens a lot, where something is only introduced the moment it becomes relevant. And every time, it's jarring. I think the goal here was to avoid excessive world building and only introduce it when you need to know it, but it ends up looking like Deus Ex Machina, like divine intervention, where something comes out of nowhere and changes things. It's not a smooth reading experience. The second example is with the ads. Now, Neon Ghost has all the ads, and there are so many of them all throughout the book, but they don't tell us enough about the world. It's like every time the ads are there, it's to make us go, "Boy, I hate ads," and that's about it. There's one ad for a horror movie that plays in Taya's mind while she's sleeping, right? So it's like an interesting detail because of how annoying the ads are. But could you imagine how much world-building potential this concept has? What would ads look like in a cyberpunk dystopia? Forgive me, but here are a few examples because I went overboard. Imagine an ad that says, "Is your child at risk of lung cancer? Buy our new air purifiers." This would strongly imply that children are dying from inhaling the poisonous haze from outside and only the rich can afford to keep their children safe. That's not just annoying ads, those are world-building ads. Imagine an ad that says, "Come work for us and we'll give you a deluxe new home to live in too." This would imply that your company you work for now owns your home as well, and if you lose your job, you become homeless, meaning your boss has more control over you than ever. Very dystopian. Imagine the potential for political ads. "Don't love it? Leave. Vote for me and I will evict criminals from our megastructure." Holy crap, the dark potential of that. And this is what frustrated me, because by the end of reading Neon Ghost, I still had no idea what type of government was there, if there even was one. Are you telling me that in a dystopian cyberpunk world there's not political ads everywhere and they're more annoying than ever? This was also frustrating because the ads are sort of over-relied upon for the world building as well. For example, Taya catches a train at one point, and we get a page and a half of her train ride that describes all the ads on the train. Then she arrives at her destination. At no point is it mentioned what this futuristic train looks like. Is it high speed? Does it hover now, or do they still use rail? Is it loud or silent? Are the carriages overpopulated or empty? Nope, we don't get any sort of visual description of what the world looks like. We just get ads. So there's so much world building potential that the ads don't realize, and they take up a lot of space that detract from other world building ideas that could have been implemented. The third example of not enough world building is that the magic system, so to speak, is vague as hell. Now, I can't mention magic in Lawful Times, that's spoilers, but in Neon Ghost, Taya has implants like cybernetic upgrades. She gets multiple surgeries through the book to increase her abilities, but there's no corresponding power-up. Right? You know how in a game, if you level up, you get a new skill and a new ability unlocked? Not so here. Taya gets more power, and it's like, okay, I guess she took that punch a little better. Oh, okay, I guess she punched that guy a little harder than last time. It's too vague. You could say it's a soft magic system, but honestly it comes across as just weaker world building. The third weakness, the books over-rely on violence. I think all three of these books are too violent. Now look, I know someone's going to immediately say that I'm just a big softie who's not mature enough to like violence. But if I may list my violent credentials for a second there, I enjoy the occasional horror film. And don't worry, I'm not going to put any clips on the screen, just relax everybody. I wholeheartedly believe that there is a time and place for graphic violence. Some stories use violence as a draw card. I mean, come on, when you watch a movie called Cocaine Bear, you expect graphic violence.
Expect it, sir, and demand it.
This is what we call spectacle. Spectacle is when a story becomes less about the story and more about the experience. Avatar is a spectacle movie with cool CGI. Fast and the Furious franchise is all action scene spectacle. But even in the fantasy genre, you actually want spectacle to justify it being fantasy and sci-fi. You want magic, you want dragons, because that's half the fun. This also works in horror movies, where the more violent the kill, the more enjoyable the movie is. Stories actually need a bit of spectacle. However, relying too much on your spectacle can make your story cheap and lazy. Example A, the entire Fast and the Furious franchise. Now, it is possible to balance these things. For example, let's say Game of Thrones, The Boys, and The Walking Dead all balance the spectacle of graphic violence with good storytelling, for the most part. But unfortunately, I would say Daniel Greene's books rely too much on the spectacle of violence at the expense of the story. Let me use one scene to analyze, for example, and I'm going to try and keep this vague to avoid spoilers. Two characters are in a room, and one goes, "Oh boy, I sure hope the monster doesn't find us here." And the other character says, "Don't worry, there are 4 guards outside, we'll be fine." And the next minute, the monster just pops up in the room with them, like,
Hello there.
now this was a fantastic surprise. The tension went from 0 to 1,000,000 real quick. And then one character goes, "How'd you get past the 4 guards?" And the monster just casually flicks the door open to show 4 dead bodies outside. Boom! Again, the tension goes even higher than ever, and I'm absolutely on the edge of my seat. Then the story comes to a grinding halt, as we get a long, detailed paragraph describing exactly what all 4 of the dead bodies look like. So this guy had his neck snapped and now his head looks in the wrong direction, and this guy had been stabbed in the eye and out the back of his skull, and this guy, etc. This perfectly encapsulates the problem I have with the violence in these books. It's boring. It distracts from the actual moments of tension and action scenes without really adding anything meaningful. There's no balance between the finer plot work and the spectacle. Even in the action scenes, there is constant blood and guts, and it even distracted from the action. So how do you find a balance between extreme violence and plot? Honestly, that's a whole video essay I might do one day. It's a good concept. But for now, I hope this explains why I think these books are too violent overall. The fourth weakness is that the characters are very shallow. And don't worry, we're nearly through the weaknesses, there's only one more after this one. This is perhaps the most frustrating one because characters are the heart and soul of your story. And I think Taya from Neon Ghost and her character journey moments have moments of greatness. There is great character writing that's tapped on here and there. But overall, the characters are too shallow. For example, the protagonist of book 1 is Clid, the main detective. She's on the front cover of book 1, smoking a cigarette. We do get some character work, we sense that she's a very serious person, but whenever she has a quiet moment to herself, she lights up a cigarette. This happens, I want to say, about 4 times in a very short 100-page story. And I realized after a while the whole cigarette thing was kind of her whole personality, that she smokes. And all these times when we could have been exploring her softer side of her character, or her sense of humor, or more of her affection for her husband, we kind of just get conversations about her smoking instead. Now, making your character smoke is a character quirk, and you can give your characters quirks to make them more memorable. A Stormlight example is that the character Rock has the quirk Airsick Lowlanders, right? It's a character quirk and it makes him iconic. But it's not a personality trait. You see the difference? A lot of characters in these books would have a quirk to help make them more memorable, but that ended up being their whole personality. For example, Quinn in Neon Ghost has a quirk where he speaks in a rather weird dialect. That's kind of his whole thing. The fifth and final weakness: the books are unresolved by the end. Oh, this one was the most soul-crushing. All three of these books feel unresolved by the end of them. It's all done with the tone of, this is a series, there's more to come. Come read the next one. Now, I know Daniel Greene has this whole elaborate plan to write 3 series, and if you didn't know, it's a really cool thing. Lawful Times is meant to be self-published. The Neon Ghost will use Kickstarter, and his 3rd series is aimed to be traditionally published. And he's actually making videos to educate people on the publication process for all 3 of these options. So again, the guy's a champion for the community. His long-term creative goal is to have 3 series, and it's very impressive. But even series need stopping points. This is especially important when you're a first-time author. If people don't like your first book, they're not gonna go read the second one. So give them an ending and establish trust. This is what Sanderson did when he wrote Mistborn: The Final Empire. It was the first book he wrote knowing that he was going to be published, and that book has an extremely hard ending. Even though it's part of a trilogy, and part of a wider series, and part of a wider universe, it still has an ending. Even the Wheel of Time has endings. Not the ending, but unending. Yeah? So look at the first 3 Wheel of Time books, since Daniel Greene's a huge Wheel of Time fan, it's a relevant example. The Eye of the World may be book 1 out of 15, but by the end of it, this may be a spoiler, but they find the Eye of the World. Right? The Great Hunt is the search for the Horn of Valere. By the end of the book, they found the Horn of Valere. The 3rd book is The Dragon Reborn, about finding the magical sword to prove who was the dragon. You get the idea. So I don't think it's right to leave a book so open like this. Sorry if this sounds cynical, but it's almost like an attempt to make the book immune to criticism. Like, you can't say the book was bad because it's clearly part of a series that doesn't exist yet, and surely the next one will explain everything and fix any apparent problems. It's a little bit too Rothfussy for my taste. My writing advice is always wrap up 90% of your plot lines by the end of first book, like 90% at least, and then challenge yourself to come up with better plot lines for the next book. Don't just leave it open and say I'll come back to it later, because maybe you won't. Life is unpredictable. Okay, final thoughts. Now, I mean this as a genuine statement, speaking as an author and not being passive-aggressive. It is hard to write a book. In researching this video, I found a lot of negative reviews for these books, with people saying, I'll never watch Daniel Greene's videos again, because he criticizes writers for the same mistakes he makes himself. I strongly encourage you not to do that. There is a wide chasm between knowing what a good book should look like and making one yourself. I think critics can legitimately spot the strengths and weaknesses of a work of art even if they couldn't do better themselves. As Galaxy Quest once taught us.
It doesn't take a great actor to recognize a bad one.
But I do wish more critics would try to make art. Maybe they wouldn't be so quick to criticize if they did. Maybe they would appreciate at least what the author is trying to do. Still, this is a long video, I'll end it there. I hope this has given you a balanced view of these books and you know whether or not you want to try them for yourself. Good luck and happy reading. Thank you for watching. Now remember, this theme of YouTuber October is to celebrate my own books being live on Kickstarter all of this month, and they will be available for general purchase in early 2025. There's a whole video about my books too if you want an objective, unbiased review on those, and that video definitely didn't give me a nervous breakdown. But if you like my video, please like and subscribe, and let me know your thoughts on these books in the comments below, and go check out Daniel Greene's channel too and send him some love. I'm the Book Guy, and I hope you enjoy a good book today. Bye!